the vines were swinging and swinging, and Paul jumped on one of the vines because he loved to climb the vines. And sure enough, one of the vines entangled him. And he fell to the ground. His father and mother jumped up and tried to look at him. So, are you okay? Okay? But no voice, no response. Felt his pulse. His pulse seems okay. Come, wake up, Paul. Are you okay, Paul? Paul. And Paul woke up. I'm okay, Dad. You told me it's okay to break a few bones. Shut up. He was strong, and he did break a few bones, but he was a strong man. And they lived in the mountains of Kali Mountains, the mountains of death. Because up there in the mountains, there were all kinds of illnesses. And it was always some kind of a problem. But his parents were missionaries there, and they loved the people. And so they stayed up there and ministered to the people. They went out to reach out to people, to help people, to preach the gospel. They were so active there. And in this little house that they had up in the mountains, it was a place where many people would come and be counseled and hear the gospel. And during this period, his father noticed that they had all kinds of problems, especially when they looked at the teeth. The teeth were always having a problem, it seemed. And so he had learned a bit about dentistry before he came. A little bit of medicine here, a little bit of medicine there. So he began to make like little molds for the people to give them like some false teeth. Some of them needed false teeth. But others, what they really needed was some good examination of their teeth to see what was inside their teeth. And see if inside their teeth there might be like a bad tooth that could be taken out. But he didn't have many good things to take them out with, but he had some pliers that were really good. And so I need a volunteer. Volunteer. Come. Quickly. Next up. Come up, quickly. Quickly, Ruth. Quickly. Come on up. And so he looked into the teeth and see if there was anything really bad about the tooth. Like, And so he put his foot in there and he shook his foot in there and he, whoa! What a tooth! That was good. I really like, it could be better. Anyway, that's a tooth. Yeah. And at night when they slept, it was really dangerous because there were always these mosquitoes. So they needed a mosquito net to cover them up because there were mosquitoes outside. And you could hear the mosquitoes coming. They actually dive bombed at you. It seemed like they were hiding out there and zoom, came right down. And they came with a sound that you knew that you kept having to do this. But really he had seen some kids that had been stung by mosquitoes and had malaria. And so all night long they were like shivering. So he knew, I don't want to get malaria. So he kept sure that this mosquito net was well protected. He would make sure that the edges of the bed and all the mosquito nets tucked right in there so that no mosquitoes could come inside. But at night, sometimes they had visitors. And one night, there was a whole bunch of visitors that came. And so Paul Brandt's father went out to see what was going on. In the darkness of the night, he looked at. Oh, these were like friendly people. Like, oh, what do you want? And they were needed for him to go off to see another patient far away. And both he and the mother had to both go because it was a woman patient. So they had to go see this patient. And so here was little Paul and little Connie, about your age, very small than you, and they were there worried, like, Dad, Mom, where are you going? We're just alone here, just two of us. We have to go. There's needs out there, and they need us, we have to go. And so father and mother, they prayed with Paul and Connie. Father God, take care of them. Take care of them. We have to go. And God, you will take care of them. Give them courage. Give them patience. Give them love. Give them strength for tonight as we go. So they left them. And as they went out there into the darkness, you could see the lights going. And the lights going farther and farther and farther away. And Paul and Connie were so scared. They said, oh no, our parents are gone. And they hugged each other. And they said, God, protect us. God, take care of us. We know, God, that you're there, and you will protect us. But Connie, don't worry. God is with us. When they heard these sounds at night, like, what are these sounds? Is that a cheetah? The fastest animal on earth? Is it coming to get us? Or was it just a rat? Or 2 rats? Or 3 rats? What are they scurrying around there? Or maybe it's a bear prowling, coming up to the cabin there. It's just a big bear. Let's just pray. And let's just take a rest. And what are these things there on the side there? What is that? Don't know what that is. Never mind. Let's just pray. And let's just be careful. Have our cares with God. And God will be with us all the time. And so they fell asleep. And they woke up in the morning. It was dawn. And their parents are back. And they're so overjoyed. It's like, wow, you're back. And God has brought you back safely. It's so wonderful that you're back. Every day was an excitement. Every day there was something to learn. And out there was all God's creation. Many things that God created you can see very easily. Even like the termite mounds. They're like 4 feet high. Ants in there, white ants in there, termites. And Paul loved to go inside and see what was inside. And he broke it down. And you can see that inside there were like rooms and channels and tunnels. All kinds of areas. And at the bottom of the mountain there, at the bottom of this hill there, was the queen bee. She was like the queen there, sitting there or lying down there. And she was a queen bee with all these workers around her. And so Paul would always watch. Wow, this is so interesting. God's creation is so interesting. Everything that God has made is so interesting. Even little ants are so interesting. It's so much fun watching all of this. And it planted in his mind, decided that one day we want to study all about this. And sure enough, Dad came up to him one day, young man, you're a teenager now. We have to send you back to England so you can be trained and bred and educated as a proper English man. He was a young man, but his dad and mom were going to put him and his daughter and his sister in England. They didn't even know about England. They'd grown up in India. But here they were going to go all the way back to England and to go back to school, to go to school there. And so indeed he had to go and be trained as a proper Englishman. And classes sometimes were very boring. And not like India, where it's so interesting. And sometimes he got really bored with all of this. But he finished his studies there, and he was studying. One day, a cable came. A cable from faraway India came. A cable that got sent to his uncle. And uncle saw the cable, and he frowned. He said, I better get the kids together. So that day, he got Paul and Connie, sit down. I have to tell you something really, really serious. And Paul and Connie knew that it was something really serious. And he read the letter. The letter was, the cable, in short words, was, Jesse taken to be with the Lord after black water fever for 2 days. Break news gently to the children. The Lord reigneth. Oh, it's so sad. It's like, oh, Father and Mother, is she all right? In those days, there was no telephone system, no emails, no Facebooks. Didn't know what to do. You could only read and read and read this cable about their father dying far, far, thousands of miles away. But the curious thing was, each day his letters still came. Each week, rather, they would still come. Because the mail took weeks and weeks and weeks to come. So after he died, his letters were still coming. And it's like, oh, another letter from Dad. It's like he hasn't died yet. And it reads, Dear Paul, dear Connie, you are my dearest. We're doing well here. We're serving God here. We're ministering to many people. God bless you and give you courage. With much love, your parents. So precious to receive these letters, even after Dad had died. But now, Paul was even more determined to finish his studies well. And he knew that he wanted to be a doctor. But he remembered that bucket of pus as a child that he remembered in India. And it made him nervous, like, do I really want to go to medicine? There's a lot of pus in medicine, you know? But God, give me strength. I'm going to go. God, I trust this is the best way to do it. So he enrolled in medical school. And sure enough, he did very well in the medical school. But he loved especially going to postmortems. Postmortems, they used to call them PMs, postmortems. You know? Postmortems mean dead bodies. And they would dissect the dead bodies and analyze the dead body and see what was in the muscle and the bone and everything. He was already developing his interest in bones. He was going to later become an orthopedic surgeon. But he was working on these bones and ligaments and everything. And he really loved them. But he noticed this classmate of his called Margaret. And she was a very lively person, very humorous person. By the way, even today, she's very humorous. She's 90 years old now. She's very humorous. And so he met her, and he said to her, can we go on a date? And he says, where to? Let's go to a PM. And Margaret said, PM? All right, I suppose. Medical student dates, PM is okay. Let's go to PM. So she followed him, but he actually went to another kind of PM, a prayer meeting. And they prayed about people all over the world, prayed about mission work, prayed about going to distant lands. And Margaret also had this passion for souls, for loved ones, to love the world, to love the people of the world. And so together, they had a good, prayerful relationship. And so one day, they were married. And they had the same goal, to go to India, to serve in India. And now, Paul was a registered graduate doctor surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon. And he was ready to go to India to serve. But when he arrived in India, it was civil war, wartime. Hindus and Muslims, Islamics were killing each other. And there were like great massacres. Thousands of people were dying on the streets. And it was like a big war. They just finished World War II in England, and now there was another war going on in India. But he cabled back to Margaret. By this time, Margaret and Paul already had 2 children, 2 babies, actually. And he said, come to India. And the parents of Margaret said, come to India. It's war in India. I'm not going to send my daughter to India. And then after a long time, Paul wrote again, come to India. And the parents said, what is this going on there? You can't send our daughter to India. It's a war in there. But Paul said, where I live, there's no war. So, India's very big. So anyway, Margaret was on her knees because she didn't know what to do. And during this prayer time, another cable came, and the cable said, don't come. So he was praying and praying and praying, and every day she would pray. And one day, in the middle of her prayer, in the deepest of her passion, she said, God, Paul needs me in India. I need to go, but but there's war in there. You really want me to go? And we have 2 children that we need to bring over there. Is that really your will? And then she had a vision of a man pointing towards the east. And she said to her auntie, we were praying together with her, Auntie, this is it. I know in my heart. I have peace. We're going to go home. And so sure enough, they got on the boat to India, taking weeks and weeks. Very difficult boat ride because they had 8 people in one cabin, packed together, hot, humid, and the kids developed all kinds of rashes in the body and boils. So it was a difficult journey. But they finally arrived in Bombay, at the port city of Bombay, the great city of Bombay, the portway to all of India. And there, Paul came to meet them, and they went on the streets. And just like Paul had told them all the time, that India is a great place. Look at all the smells and the sights and the sounds and just smells of spices everywhere. All the street vendors selling things. Look at how that is. That was how I grew up. This is India that I love. Come join me. And yes, people were like tremendous crowds. Everywhere there were crowds of people. And it was like so packed and hot and humid. And then wherever you went, there were salespeople. They were selling silks, jewelry, all kinds of things on sale everywhere. It was really exciting in a sense. But also, there's also a lot of sadness. Because you saw the eyes of leprosy patients. She had never really realized what a leprosy patient's eyes were. And she looked at these eyes, and they were sad eyes. They were dry eyes that sometimes could not blink. Some that had cataracts in their eyes. And she started staring at them. And in her, she began to develop this touching, this compassion. And later on, she would become an eye doctor just for the leprosy patients. But that wasn't her intention when she first went there, but she began to sense that. And for Paul, he just knew and loved hands. Because hands were so beautiful. Hands we could do anything with. We can kind of touch so many things. We can feel, we can sense things. Hands are so beautiful. It's just like God's creation of everything. Our hands are truly God's creation. He was using his 10 fingers to serve God. And here are all these hands that he saw were the leprosy patients. And they were so different. Their hands were deformed. They were crooked. They couldn't move so well. Some were missing. And it's like, why is it like that? God, what are these hands? How come they're like that? And so he began in him this burning passion to solve this problem. What is it? What is it? What are these hands for like that? The hands were good for begging. A lot of beggars were leprosy patients. In fact, sometimes when you go to these holy places, like on the river Ganges, you can see like a host of beggars, all leprosy patients wrapped up there, and they're begging. But he remembered Jesus. When Jesus was on earth, he loved especially the leprosy patients. He knew that people did not want to be near the leprosy patients. They would call out, leper, leper, and didn't want to talk to them, wanted them far away. But Jesus went and he touched them. And he healed them. And he cared for them. Paul thought of all of these. Time and again, thought of all these Bible scenes of Jesus' love for the people, for the leprosy patients. And he began to develop this burning passion that one day, I will help with leprosy patients, especially their hands for God. And one day, indeed, he had a fateful encounter with a hand. There was a leprosy patient who shook his hand, and in that moment, it gave him a tremendous insight, because when he shook his hand, he said, "Ah! I'm sorry," time's up again. I feel it. Do it once more.